Welcome, and we're so glad that you're here. I do want to thank all of our guest speakers for today's webinar. Today we have several guests from Metropolitan School District of Wayne Township in Indiana, if only I could speak. We have Michele Eaton, Pete Just, and Dana Lile. We also have Tricia Kennedy from Gwinnett County Public Schools. They'll be introducing themselves shortly, so we'll get into the introductions in just a minute. And I am Jill Hobson, a K12 Institutional Program Manager from IMS Global, and with me today is Kara Jenkins, Director of Marketing Communications. I do want to remind all of you that your audio will be muted throughout today's session, so we want to encourage you to use the Q&A to submit questions to all of our guest speakers. You can do that at any point during the session, and we will make sure that you have an opportunity to have your questions answered. So as we begin, we understand that you as K12 individuals are very interested in getting the digital systems that you have working together. You have many different kinds of digital systems that you've made an investment in, and these systems may not automatically be set up to work together, and that's why we have created a program to help you find out how it is that you can begin the process of integrating those systems. It's an evolution and a revolution that you can take using IMS standards to bring these systems together. So in order to make that process happen, we want to encourage you to consider our K12 Digital Learning Revolution program. The way to get started with this program is to schedule a time to talk with us. You don't have to become a member of IMS in order to get started. You can do that by going to imsglobal.org/K12-revolution and just go ahead and let us know that you have an interest in finding out more about how this program works. Part of what we'll do is help you design a strategy and a plan and some processes for helping create a more interoperable system. We can work with you on what vision you want to have for how this happens. We know that you need to work across the many environments, the many different divisions within your environment to be able to make this work. Particularly your IT and curriculum departments need to work together to help understand how to make those systems work together. By coordinating together, you can begin to understand how important it is to find products that are interoperable. And the best way to make that happen is by using products that are certified, that are trusted by IMS Global's Conformance Certification. So through the leadership of IMS Global members who are K12 institutions and state departments of education, we have created this K12 program. And you can look at our rapidly growing list of products that are certified. We have over 400 products now in our product directory that you can check out at imscert.org. These products have been through rigorous testing to ensure that they do meet the level of certification necessary to be in the product directory. So this program involves 4 different tiers. At each tier, there are certain kinds of things we're going to recommend that you consider doing as you begin to bring your separate systems together. Beginning with looking at what products are certified that you might want to be bringing into your network. We know that you're not going to do all of that at one time, that you're going to decide that over a period of time, and that's why we think it will be part of your strategic plan. Then you can begin to build that foundation where you work towards everything being ready to go on day 1 of learning, whether that's the beginning of the year or any day of the year when a new student may be entering into your program. And working towards the instructional impact, which is the tier that we're going to talk about today, where you're working on getting the digital content into a place where it's available and ready to help support learning for the right content for the right student at the right time, as well as tools that allow for the possibility of returning gradebook data to a single place of record. We do have a standard called OneRoster that allows for something we call grade passback, and that is something we can explore if you're interested in talking more with us. Then we can always talk about those advanced insights and achievements that are possible at our 4th tier of the Digital Learning Revolution program. And so now we're going to begin our process, and I do want to take a moment just to talk more with our guests today, have them introduce themselves and tell you just a brief little bit about themselves and their district. So I'm going to begin by asking Tricia Kennedy, Executive Director of Instructional Development and Support for Gwinnett County Public Schools, to introduce herself and tell you about her district.
Thanks, Jill. So I'm in the instructional side of Gwinnett County Public Schools. I work with instructional development and kind of launching new initiatives, and that includes work with eClass, which is our digital conversion initiative, our digital transformation. Just to give you a little bit of information about Gwinnett, we're a large district outside of Atlanta. And you see the numbers there on the screen. We're diverse in what I would call the truest sense of the word. Ethnically, we're a majority-minority district, but you can see that there's no single predominant ethnicity really in the district. Also, school by school, we're really diverse. We have high-poverty schools as well as low-poverty schools, and we have high minority as well as lower minority schools. We're adding about 1,500 students every year into the district, and the majority of the students that we're adding are non-white and lower socioeconomic level. And our students continue to meet with success, as you see with a couple of measures there, as measured by multiple data points. So we're very proud of the work that they're doing and our teachers are doing to maintain that high level of achievement. So a part of that, and what's contributed certainly to, we believe, our high achievement, is the work that we've been doing with our digital initiative. So we began our digital conversion work in 2011. It was as a part of a special local option sales tax that passed. We got a one-penny sales tax that allowed us to do some procurement and to building our infrastructure. The intention was always on a one-stop shop for our teachers and for our students and for our parents. But we decided to prioritize best-in-breed procurement rather than purchasing a single suite. So what you see on the screen here is the initial areas of focus that we had around that procurement and developing that infrastructure. So just that fact that we were going to be going out with a number of different applications made it really critical for us to look at and prioritize interoperability in order for us to really accomplish that one-stop shop goal. And so therefore, really early on, we became actively involved as an IMS Global member. We definitely started off at that commitment stage, I'll say. We tried to draw the line in the sand with our vendors, but at that time, actually, there were very few that were on board. We did make single sign-on a priority. And in order to do that, especially since we had very few vendors who were working in that arena at the time, we developed our own web portal that allowed that to happen, and we got LTI certification for our in-district portal. So that was really moving us up into that next level. Again, our first goal was single sign-on for that one-stop shop view, but we quickly realized that that there was complexity coming. As we added applications, the complexity grew, and we moved into needs around ingesting our content, into rostering, into application integration. Central to our work, as you'll see there on the diagram, and to our instructional work, is our learning management system, which we are partnered with D2L. So we were rostering from our student information system, And we did some early integration work with classwork so that our teachers could search from within their D2L pages and add individual classwork lessons directly into those course pages. And then we started working with Safari Montage, mainly as a content provider to start, but then because of their interoperability and what we were able to do with an integration with D2L, we started moving into other areas with Safari, using them for our camera system, and now we're really looking at using them as a learning object repository, an LOR. That initial LTI link with D2L is what really allowed us to go that path. And we're now adding thin common cartridge links from various digital content providers into Safari, and then also can access it because of the interoperability in our D2L pages. And you'll see on the right side of the screen there that we have multiple content providers that also agreed kind of independently for single sign-on through our portal. And within recent years, we've been moving more and more to OneRostering, using the OneRoster specs with our new student information system and with several of our content providers. So since the initial early work back in 2011, 2012, we've really seen quite an increase in our integration among our digital resources. You see that line showing there, and currently 134 of our resources are using the IMS standards. We still have about 50 who, for various reasons, haven't adopted yet, and we're continuing to encourage them to. We're integrating or using at least single sign-on with them, but it would be so much easier if they would also certify under the IMS specs. But we're still working with them. So with all of that, that's the background, and that's a lot on the kind of the infrastructure we've got, but the so what for us. Because we're able to integrate across these applications for our teachers, it's simpler for them. It's simplified access for teachers and students. And so those who were maybe more reluctant to use the digital resources are less reluctant now. We're seeing certainly an uptick in our teachers' comfort level with using digital resources just as a regular part of instruction. For them, it feels like a single application. It's time-saving, it's easier, and any time you can save time for teachers, it's going to mean higher adoption because, as we all know, their time is so valuable. So we've seen a higher level of adoption for many of the content resources that we've provided to the schools. And really, we're seeing instruction more and more just extending beyond the school day, and that is so valuable for our students because they have access to pretty much everything that they're using and doing in the class during the day in this system that's been built and developed. They have access to that from home or from anywhere 24/7. So it's becoming a part of the norm. As a matter of fact, it's become so comfortable for us in the last couple of years that this year we had our first fully online days, which we call digital learning days. It was district-wide. We had to be out of school due to snow and weather in the South. That's a big deal. And so we were out of school, closed for 3 days, but our students were able to continue learning. Our teachers were able to continue teaching, and we were able to count those as productive and effective school days. So for Gwinnett, the what's next is that we know that one of the key foundational pieces that we've got to yet do is that integration between our student information system and our learning management system, and that means beyond just rostering. We know we've got to get to a place where we're sharing more data, and IMS specs are going to allow us to do that. We've been a little bit slower than we would have liked to because we adopted a new student information system a couple of years ago, and simply the task of getting used to that and making sure that everything's shored up as far as how we're collecting data is taken the priority. But we know that's the next steps we're going to move into. And those data elements being brought back then across applications and aggregated so that our teachers can more easily make instructional decisions by looking at data on where their students' learning is by standards from across multiple sources. And then the ultimate, the mecca that we know we're after and believe we're going to be able to reach is not only do those that data come back to the teachers so that they can make instructional decisions, but the system itself being able to recommend content and learning activities that's directly linked to what students have their performance as shown in the data that we're pulling back. So we know that's the goal, and that's what we are headed towards, but we believe it was critical for us to have built this infrastructure, and an infrastructure that really relies on interoperability first in order for us to be able to reach those ultimate instructional goals.
Thank you, Tricia. We did have one question come in that I wanted to pass along. Seems like it'd be timely to ask you right now. So you mentioned that you still have a few vendors who have not are not yet certified. What methods are you using to encourage them to move towards using IMS standards?
Well, we really start in our procurement process, even when we're at where we're starting to look for vendors to meet a particular content or curriculum need. We let them know that it's a priority for us, that they are IMS certified, and we give them the specific standards by which we need for whatever the situation is, whatever the use case is going to be for their content and their application. But then, there are times, like with the ones that we're working with now, where the instructional need or might trump the need around interoperability. We've got situations in particular where maybe some of our classes, like at the high levels of foreign language, is something I think of. We have a lot of smaller vendors who haven't moved into that work yet, but yet their resources are what we need instructionally. So then, if we've selected them based on those instructional needs, when we sit down at the table to talk contracts, we negotiate and usually have language in the contract that says that they are willing to start moving towards interoperability IMS certification. And we haven't had any who just refuse to at least start working towards go down that pathway. And then as we adopt them and implement, we just continue to kind of bring them back to the table to say, show us what your timeline is, what are you expecting to be able to do in future releases for us.
Great. Thank you, Tricia. Appreciate that. Okay, I'd like to now introduce our other guests from Wayne Township. And that would be Pete Just, Chief Operations and Technology Officer from Metropolitan School District of Wayne Township, and Michele Eaton, Director of Virtual and Blended Learning, and Dana Lile, eLearning Coordinator. And I will turn it over to them to tell you a little bit about their district and get started.
Great. Thank you very much. This is Pete, and we're going to do a little bit of a tag team today. So let's start by telling you a little bit about our district. I think I'm going to skip the slide there. Well, maybe not. There we go. And so our district is in Indianapolis. We are on the west side. We're an urban district. We've got 16,000 students, majority minority. We have a 78% free and reduced lunch. So it gives you an idea that we are in a pretty high degree of poverty. We have 11 elementary schools, rather large. They tend to be about 8 to 850 students, 2 junior highs, a 9th grade center, and actually 3 high schools, a very large high school, actually the largest in the state, and then a virtual school and a university high school, which is dual credit. So we have quite a few students in different backgrounds, 72 different languages, 62 different countries. And so we've really tried to implement a program of multiple pathways to graduation. One of the things that we've done is a use of a lot of online programs. We've been in different types of learning management systems since the late 90s and started Indiana's first online school. And we currently are using eLearning as our LMS, and I'll get into that here in just a second. This is an example of a portion of what we call our blueprint for digital learning. The blueprint idea is one I had when we were going through a number of construction projects, renovating a lot of our schools, our community, our school leadership, teachers, and even students were very familiar with this issue with renovation, and I thought I'd kind of use that as a metaphor of renovating education. And so our goal is really to move towards a more college and career-ready environment, which is, of course, something we're all kind of working towards. But the way we thought about it was that we needed to work closely with our curriculum instruction assessment team. And so we forged a really solid relationship with them over the last 8 years. Dana Lile is really going to be speaking after me, and she really is our bridge to the curricular instructional side to make sure that we've got a really nice back and forth. But we realized that on top of that foundation, we wanted to build upon really kind of what we call our foundational steps, which you can see there include a number of items, including digital content. And so that's where we want to focus today. And really this is all surrounding the 4 C's of trying to have a common theme across all grade levels, across all subject areas. And that would be to leverage technology and the resources that we can provide to increase communication skills, collaboration skills, critical thinking skills, and creativity. So in order to do that, we realized that there had to be a core system, and we call that our Wayne Learning Hub. And that is actually built on It's Learning, but the Wayne Learning Hub itself is really intended to be kind of the core of where all learning can take place. So obviously, as we think about that, we obviously have a very critical job to fulfill in terms of trying to make this easy, trying to make it fair, giving everyone some options. And the way that we often think about it is that the Learning Hub allows us to combine a number of different tools to streamline teachers' work. So we wanted to create a digital learning environment. We wanted to create a resource repository and also have a product that could help us centralize and manage our curriculum. So that digital learning environment, the resource repository or library, and kind of the interaction with curriculum all in one place was really critical. So that one-stop shop idea was kind of a core piece of what we're trying to accomplish. Digital equity was an essential part, and we're going to get into that here in a minute when I hand off to Dana. But what we're trying to accomplish is to have a opportunity for our students, virtual opportunity to have a more personalized learning experience, and that the ecosystem that we're building provides a lot of additional value to our students and to our staff, and is very easy to use. We're not there yet, but our district made a commitment early on to be IMS Global compliant. So we started to adopt Thin Common Cartridge LTI and most recently OneRoster, and working with all of our vendors to assure a commitment, as you've already kind of heard other schools have done, that they will move towards this, and even more strongly say during adoption that we will prefer vendors that have IMS Global Standards options for us. So that started with also a desire to have a single sign-on and identity management, identity creation. We worked on all these things over the last 4 years and have moved pretty well to make those a common part of our environment. And we're also very engaged to develop a digital dashboard through EdFi, and that's another project that kind of is in parallel with this one here. So what you then see as we kind of move through our slides a little bit further is that this becomes the centralized place for all learning to take place. Now, this is a bit utopian still at the time we're speaking of it right now. We have not yet arrived, but we certainly have that as our goal. And as our goal, we put a number of things in place, which Michele and Dana will talk about, to be able to make sure that we're moving towards these more ideal concepts that we can hopefully realize, and that we've been realizing really for the last 2 or 3 years. So at this point, I think I'll hand off to Dana and let her continue to talk about our one-stop shop and how the Learning Hub is the core of our learning opportunities. Dana?
Our end goal is that for it to be, the place for everything to be, and we are working on that really hard with our curriculum team. We started this journey with our new LMS eLearning a couple years ago, and one of the things we realized is we needed a reason for people to go there. When you have a change with an LMS, we want to make sure that we are directing people there and it makes sense. So working closely with our curriculum department, we've actually aligned all of our curriculum and written all of our curriculum, and it's housed in our LMS. So that when teachers need to get what they're supposed to be teaching, that's where they go. So it's this point of need kind of first stop. And then from there, we're working on getting our multiple providers resources in one location. We have several that are in there already. We have other ones that we're working on, just like it was mentioned earlier, some of our smaller vendors. World Language is a huge one. That they're such small companies, it's hard to get them there, but we're continually having conversations. And the OneRoster piece has been a huge asset for us. So all of this allows us to shift the way our team does professional development. No longer are we teaching people how to use a tool, but we're talking about how do we instruct in this environment and what makes good quality instruction while staying aligned with the curriculum needs that are there for students. So we're really excited about the one-stop shop and as it continues to grow, even month by month. Pete, if you'll slide to the next slide. Digital equity is a huge piece for us. We talk about it a lot. The work with our curriculum team that we do side by side on this really helps everyone in our district, from teachers to our cabinet level, understand that digital equity is more than just one-to-one devices, but it's access to quality resources that match our curricular and instructional needs. We have to make sure that there are so many resources out there that we have to work hand in hand with our curriculum department to ensure that what is being adopted is really fitting the need curricularly for our students and teachers. You know, in Indiana, our parents pay textbook fees. We're one of the just few states that do that. So we have to be really cognizant of our fiscal responsibility in that, and that we are making sure the resources we bring to our teachers through the curriculum team and through our team match their curricular and instructional needs. But more importantly, the work around the IMS standards has really allowed us to say, these resources that we're bringing to you not only fit your curricular instructional needs, but because they make the standards, the IMS standards, we can get you access to the resources much more quickly, it's more seamless, and we can guarantee that money is being spent well and that quality instruction will fall in line. Our ultimate goal is to make things easier for teachers. The multiple logins and usernames are things of the past and are continuing to fall away. Teachers are busy. They have a lot on their plate. It's a stressful job, and it is our role to make it as easy for them as possible. And then the last piece that I'm going to talk about is voice and choice. And so really I think I can speak for me and our team, that we're really excited about is our teachers, through the work with the IMS Global Standards and the repository that we've been able to build in our LMS, we've allowed our teachers to curate content as well as automate tasks. So they're not giving up the autonomy that they have in their classroom to curate good quality instruction and academic activities just because we have items in one location. It actually enhances that availability. Our teachers are more efficient, they're more creative, and they feel a sense of freedom, and the students are much more engaged when they are working in this environment. It's all about quality instruction for students, and if we can put systems in place and parameters in place and use the IMS Global Standards to help that quality instruction really rise to the surface, then we've done our job well. I'm going to pass it off to Michele, who's going to talk a little bit more about what it looks like in our LMS, as well as kind of the background, that the work we did to get our curriculum department to understand, because this is outside of their box, thinking about global IMS global standards, stuff like that. So she's going to talk to us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so what it looks like when you have a one-stop shop, and you know, this is what's so great, is that it doesn't matter what LMS we're using. It's the fact that we're following these IMS global standards, and I know that if my LMS is IMS global certified, that I can make these kind of things happen within our platform. So for us, this is what it looks like. Our teachers in their courses can put a lesson plan together, a digital lesson plan together, tie standards to it. That's what you're seeing in the top little box. When they tie standards and they search for content in the library, it automatically pulls up resources from Guru, from Novation, from some of these OER content providers that we have adopted. It's also going to pull up publisher content that we've adopted from the curricular side, and then additionally teacher created materials. And so all of that can be populated within the same platform. And again, we're not pulling from lots of different places. And so it looks like it's really easy. It works really simply. Our students have access to this as well. So to speak to that voice and choice piece, you know, it does more than just make teachers' lives easier. It helps us empower students to advocate for themselves as learners, to make those decisions, and allows them to search for digital content in a safe environment. So if you go ahead and slide over for me. Go ahead, the next slide, please. It looks like we skipped a slide. It's also, I'll speak a little bit to the value add piece before I explain what you're looking at on the screen. Additionally, being able to integrate everything and create this centralized location for digital content. We've been able to let go of other platforms like our curriculum mapping software, so we've been able to save some money and have a fiscally valuable product here by being able to really integrate digital content. But at the same time, a lot of our value comes from faster and easier adoption. We're able to merge our OER strategy with our district adopted resources in a much more efficient and effective way. And then we're also able to get higher usage. The more platforms, the more places you're sending teachers and students, the more difficult it is to juggle. So when we can simplify that, put it all in one place, then we're able to do our jobs easier, more effectively, and we're able to see buy-in across the district. So if you go back, let's take a look at the bigger map. This is a flow chart that we have created as a team. Here we go. This integrations process, because our job is to make things look like it's very easy and seamless, and we know on the back end that there is no easy button, and this has required our teams to work together really tightly. And so we've created this color-coded flow chart that's a little bit overwhelming, that helps us identify, based on where we want the content to go, what kind of rostering is going to happen, whether it's anything from anonymous access to our data team having to manually create accounts. We can follow this flow chart and know about how long the process is going to take, what path we're going to take, and whose responsibility it is. So we've been able to create this flow chart to really keep ourselves organized, and it also is a pretty handy communications tool, so that when we are working with teachers and making decisions about content, we can have pretty honest conversations about the time it's going to take based on how easy this particular product is going to integrate. And generally speaking, if you go ahead to the next slide, we have bolded certain paths that we have identified as the best plan. These are the most efficient, and these are the tightest integrations. These are the ones where the products that we've seen that are able to follow these paths are the ones that have the thin common cartridge compliance or the OneRoster compliance. So it's taking a lot of that manual work off of our hands. And so this is, while it can look pretty technical and a little bit overwhelming, it does help us have, those honest conversations about which products are going to help us get up and running in the most efficient time and get students into the digital content. We all know we want everything running day one, and the more and more content and the more platforms that you begin to implement and adopt, the more difficult that task can become. So if anyone we have shared this, we have a Creative Commons license on it. We're willing to share it and allow you to remix it to meet the needs of your own district. If anyone is interested in this, please shoot us an email, reach out, find us on Twitter. We are happy to get you a copy of this.
Michele?
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you, maybe if you could provide a good example of why these two paths are really kind of the best. Obviously, each color is a different member of our staff doing different things. But in a practical way, how did these paths make adoption or use by students and staff easier than if we were to be on, if you will, the other side?
Right, absolutely. So the other side of the map requires a lot of, the biggest difference is how rostering happens. We find that ends up being a really time-consuming process. And one, I'm sure that many districts can relate. As you adopt more and more resources and more digital content, more devices, unfortunately, our staff don't multiply at the same rate. And so if you look here at these two particular paths, if we're looking for something to have a single LTI link access, that means we are just providing single sign-on access to that platform. You click on the link, it takes you to the platform, logs you in. When we can do that within our LMS. We prefer the provisioning to happen kind of seamlessly between the LMS and the platform, where it's not taking a whole lot of time. So if our learning management system can send the data to the platform instead of us having to manually create accounts, that's obviously preferred, because it just kind of happens like auto-magically, is how we like to call it. And so that process, if that happens, I can get this set up in a matter of minutes. If we're looking to add content in the libraries, so we're going to be looking at content that is common cartridge or thin common cartridge certified and compliant. Again, the best path is going to be where we have rosters, that provisioning happens automatically from our LMS to the platform, and we're able to upload that content, and it's richly tagged with metadata so that it's searchable. Again, we go to the library, I can search by standard and by learning object type and really filter down. While it's not as quick as a single LTI link access, it's pretty efficient on our end to set up, and provides the greatest integration, because it's ultimately, we really want to be able to have that content in the library in that one place where we can train our teachers and our students how to access and filter information from that location instead of 12 different platforms, and get it into the hands of students pretty quickly.
All right, so really that wraps it up. I'd say, to just punctuate what Michele was saying, when people think about, adoption, and we let our staff participate in the adoption evaluation process holistically. So there's many people involved. And so the reason that Michele said that was a great tool to help communication is because if you see that there are 8 paths that you can follow, but only 2 paths lead you in the direction you want to go, it makes it a little bit easier for the staff as we evaluate resources to say, yeah, let's go on one of those 2 paths, because I like the immediately available product rather than something that I'm going to have to, like Michele says, head 12 different directions and not have it in our library. So that's kind of our benefit or value add.
Well, thanks, Pete. And so just one quick question that I'll ask to Wayne Township. It certainly did sound like students and teachers feel empowered to make decisions about choosing resources because everything is mostly, or maybe everything is in one place. Is your feeling that teachers are feeling personalized learning, or learning is more personalized now because of the way that you've been able to bring things together?
Michele, Dana, I'll let you answer.
I certainly think so. I think the more efficient access we can get to a diverse collection of digital content, the easier it is for students to make decisions about their learning, the easier it is for teachers to help individualize instruction, because we're no longer limited to that single textbook resource. And when it's easy and efficient to find everything in one spot, it certainly kind of changes the game, I think, when it comes to personalized and individualized learning.
Yeah, I would add that I've been in the district for about 24 years, and as a classroom teacher in 20-some years ago, you know, it was that one textbook, and that was what we used. And for the last 15 years, we've been saying textbooks are resources. Well, it doesn't feel like that if you don't have access to other things. And with this work that we've been doing with getting our resources in one spot, we actually can say, oh no, there's lots of options, and teachers are then able to customize and personalize for their individual students' needs and classroom needs.
Okay, great, thank you. So here's a question from one of our attendees. How do you quantify the improvements from the efforts presented today? What kind of cost savings or efficiency gains or time savings? And I'm really opening that up to all of our guest speakers. Anybody can speak to that.
Well, I'll go ahead. I think that as somebody that's really responsible to the superintendent and to the school board as a member of the cabinet, I really have to be able to justify what we're doing. And so we do participate in twice-a-year surveys that kind of test the waters, if you will, on whether we're achieving those four core things that we said we were going to work on, the 4 C's. And that obviously is a little bit beyond just this digital resource piece, but what we've seen we've been doing that for 4 years. So we have 8 a baseline and I guess 7 successive surveys. We've seen a steady growth in adoption. We've seen a steady growth in people seeing the benefits that we've been able to document. So I'd say on one hand there's that, and then there's sort of the obvious piece of if everything is in one place, then naturally things are more efficient. And you can see through utilization, tool utilization, that there are more people that are accessing the resources that we've purchased. Where I can tell you that 8 or 10 years ago, we did not see that. There were tools we purchased, digital tools that would not see the light of day, if you will. So that's how I would answer. I don't know about Tricia or anyone else.
I think for Gwinnett it's similar. We're looking at usage data, and we're looking at individual applications as well as the system as a whole. Right now we're holding at a little bit more than 80% of our teachers and 80% of our students that are regularly in and active in our learning management system, and since that's the central point for us where all of other content comes kind of through that, we know that that's active use of the resources that we're providing. We also, I'd say 2 other pieces for us that are higher, kind of a higher picture, but certainly talk to return on investment. I mentioned that our initial work and infrastructure was funded through a penny sales tax, and that was the majority of what that penny sales tax went for, and our voters, our citizens, did renew that sales tax option 2 years ago. So we felt that was a vote of confidence, And, you know, the feedback that we received from the community is it was a vote of confidence around the work that we had done with the funding that they had given us previous to that to do this digital work. And also, I would say just the fact that we've been able to be at a place this year where we could keep going in instruction 3 days while we were actually not on site in our buildings, that's a big return on investment for us. Our board was very pleased to see that the infrastructure and the teacher capacity that we have built over these years resulted in that kind of a cost saving for the district, that we did not have to reschedule those days of instruction. And, you know, while there were certainly some detractors and some things that we learned that we need to improve on for those types of days, the overwhelming response from our teachers, from our students, from our parents, our community was positive around those days. So that was a pretty obvious, evident return on investment for us.
Thank you both. We do want to let you know that we have numerous resources that have been developed and shared by the members of our IMS Global community, and you can find those at imsglobal.org/K12. And we want to invite you, this is a little bit into the future, but the registration is now open, so we want to invite you to our next K12 webinar that will happen in September. Please go ahead and think about registering for the webinar now. Registration is open at this time. And we want to encourage you to consider 2 particular resources that you can find on our website. One is the overview of the K12 Digital Learning Revolution program, and the other is a resource that can help you get started understanding one of the interoperability standards that you heard both teams mention today, and that is Learning Tools Interoperability. This is a presentation that's designed for folks who may not know anything about LTI and just want to get started understanding how that system works. So your action items as you go away today, be sure to check out those resources. Go ahead and set up a time to talk with us and learn more and how you can get started. And visit the detail page for today's webinar. You will get an email where you'll be able to access the recording and all the resources that are shared as well as today's presentation. We want to thank you for attending our webinar today. Have a great day.